Got me. You got Corey. Corey, looking good today. How we doing?
Oh, thanks, Alpha. Appreciate it. Same to you. We're doing well. Another Wednesday. Week 8 is upon us in the NFL. Hard to believe, but we're almost halfway home here in the regular season. A lot of storylines. The Niners dropping back-to-back games. I think that might have been the biggest surprise so far of last week, Alpha.
Yeah, that to me was the biggest surprise as well. There were some crazy games as well. How about that Browns Colts game? Refs had a huge factor in that one late, but it was a thrilling back and forth game the entire way. The New York Football Giants are so back in their quest to win the Super Bowl this year. Big win over the Commanders. Y'all know I'm kidding. They're not winning anything, but a good win by my Giants. Corey, your Eagles had a decent game against the Finns. What'd you think?
Yeah, I did not think it was going to be a blowout. It was pretty close first quarter, kind of a defensive slugfest. And for fantasy purposes, I have Tua and Jalen in my 2 QB league, and I was sweating a little bit. Needed some
I'm
points
sorry,
from
your
those
two
guys.
QB league?
Yep, 2 QB
Continue.
league.
We don't want to
Yep.
hear about your BS 2
Oh,
QB
it's way
made up
better
league.
than just one quarterback. It's
Then why
brutal
not?
when
You can
one
have
guy
two.
goes down, though. But
Yeah, I can
anyway, it
imagine
was a
so.
good game. I'm tired of hearing that the Eagles aren't a good team. They're finding ways to win. AJ Brown is the next
Unbelievable.
coming of Terrell Owens in an Eagles jersey. I mean, he's been unreal. And they just got another former Tennessee Titan and Kevin Byard to
That was a good
anchor
deal.
that safety. So they're making my transition into fandom pretty easy, Alpha.
Well, I'm very happy for you. Good for you, you fake fan. Man in the back, it is time. Let's break down this week's slate and let's dive right into it. What do we got first? Even though I already know, we're going to have the Thursday night game. We have the Bucks. We got the Bills. The Bills with an absolute heartbreaking loss against the Patriots last week. I thought they'd take it, but crazy game there. Corey, what you thinking?
Yeah, I am a little all over on this right now. I kind of like the Bucks with the points. I just don't like this Buffalo team right now. They've been continuously playing down to their opponents' levels when they're not nearly as good as the Buffalo Bills. This defense is super leaky. I am a little concerned about Baker Mayfield. He's banged up, questionable to play right now on the short turnaround. But this defense is clearly hurting for Buffalo without Milano, White, and Daquan Jones. I thought they were going to help us out last week on our money line parlay. They
Yep.
were able to get that lead late, and then all of a sudden, Mac Jones just absolutely marches down the field. So I don't know exactly where I'm going to go with this, but I think it's just too many points for Buffalo to cover. I know they're at home. The game script is probably going to be a little bit more pass heavy with this Tampa Bay rushing defense being very good. No Dawson Knox. So I think that could play a factor in the over if you like that play. But I don't know. I'm going to stick with my gut here. I think Tampa guts this one out in a close Thursday night game.
Yeah, I'm taking the over, kind of like what you alluded to here. I just don't think the Bills defense will be able to stop them. The Bills defense hasn't really been able to stop anyone. Like you said, Mac Jones in a must-have-it drive went absolutely down the field and torched them. The defense is shot. They've had too many injuries this year, and DeMar Hamlin has not been able to return to the field. It is a sad story. I was hoping we get to see him this year, but it appears that DeMar's only going to play on a handful of special teams plays. I believe the only plays he's been in this year have been on touchbacks, so hopefully he can get in there. But this defense isn't stopping anybody, and I do think the Bucks will put up points as well. Give me the over 42.5. Definitely one of my favorite plays this week. Quickly over to the comments. We have Alex in here. Alex is always here. We appreciate you, bro. And Dr. Buck, first time in here. We appreciate you stopping in as well. Man in the back, what we got for the second game this week? We have Corey's Eagles versus the Washington Commanders. Washington, tough loss to the Giants. Seems like they always lose to the Giants. Do they bounce back here? Another divisional game.
Yeah, I know the Commanders always play the Eagles tough, and they should have probably beat them earlier in the year if Ron Rivera decided to go for two instead of playing for overtime in Philadelphia. With that said, though, we talked about in the open briefly, this Eagles team is a Super Bowl contending team. They may not be blowing people out like they did last year, but they are finding ways to win. They held Miami's offense in check. Jalen Hurts is banged up. I know he's trying to keep it hushed up. The team's trying to keep it hushed up, but he's still able to make plays. Is it as smooth and crisp as last year? Absolutely not. But again, as he says, keep the main thing, and that is winning ball games in South Philly. They just went out to trade Kevin Byard, as we mentioned. That is a huge upgrade for them at safety while they await for Reed Blankenship to return from injury. Byard, one of the top safeties in all of the National Football League over the last 5 years. I think that this Eagles team is going to feast on this terrible Washington offensive line. They got more holes than your local whack-a-mole game at a Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, this is a
Wow.
terrible O-line. You got Sam Howell on pace to be sacked for the most times in NFL history. I just think we're going to see points, though. I'm going to go with the over in this one. This Eagles offense is clicking, and I think if Sam Howell can put up the performance he did a few weeks ago in Philly, I think Washington's going to still find some ways to find the end zone. I like the over in a bit of a higher scoring divisional rival game this week.
Unfortunately, we are on opposite sides here. I'm taking the under. I just don't think the Washington offensive line can contain the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. We saw what the Giants defensive line did to them, and they're not exactly the best defensive line in the league. They were able to get 6 or 7 sacks in the game, and I think the Eagles will have a very similar performance. I do think the Eagles have a big win here. They do win. They might get backdoored, why I don't like the spread, but I don't see Washington putting up too many points. I think the under 43.5 is definitely going to hit. One of my favorite plays of the week. And man in the back, we have to put it up. We do have the Jaguars and the Steelers. We'll do it after this game, man in the back. Jags and the Steelers. Steelers are home. They've been looking good. Corey, what you think?
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite plays, and it's the Jags minus 2.5. I have no clue how the Steelers team is 4-2 with 0 running game, and the play they're getting from Kenny Pickett. They're one of the luckiest teams right now in the league. The Jags, I think, should win this game by a touchdown, despite their roller coaster season they've had offensively. Somehow they got to get Calvin Ridley, though, back in the mix. After a hot start to the season, he has been nowhere to be found. Lawrence looked fine Thursday night with that knee injury, and it actually turned out to be a pretty entertaining Thursday night game, one of the few ones we've had so far this season. But I just don't see how Pittsburgh wins this game. I mentioned how they can't run the ball. The Jacksonville Jaguars are ranked second in rush and rushing success rate. So you're trying to tell me that Kenny Pickett is going to win this game through the air the way that he has been playing? I'd snag the number now. I don't know if I would play the Jags anything above 3 just because it isn't Pittsburgh. If the Steelers defense is able to keep them in it, the crowd gets into it, and then it could be anybody's ball game. But I like being under the key number of 3 here with this Jaguars offense.
See, I like the under in this matchup. I'm not sure if Trevor Lawrence is going to make it through the entire game. We all saw he had a couple running plays last week, which surprised me with that knee. He did break out. I know it was instinctual, but he can't be doing that. If he does that against this defensive front, they will bang him up. We all know the defensive front that the Steelers have. And I do think both teams' defenses will show up. 41.5 is a high total for these two teams. I think this one sails comfortably under that number. I know last week we saw a lot of overs hit. I don't have too many unders this week. I believe this is one of my last couple. But this is definitely one we're going to have exposure on the under. The Steelers' defensive line, arguably the best in the league. We should see them ball out on Sunday here. Man in the back, we got to let the people know why we are here. We are here because of SoBet. Remember, guys, SoBet does have a special. Tap the link. It's only $1 for your first month. Come get all my plays. Come get Corey's plays, and as well as 48 plus other handicappers. Can't get a better deal out there. Tap the link. Come join in, and let's have some fun cashing. Man in the back, let's move on to the next game on the slate. We have the Texans and we have the Panthers. Corey, we all know the storyline here. The two quarterbacks battling it out. What you got?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a cool storyline, as you mentioned, obviously, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. This could be a spot where if you wanted to buy on the Panthers, it's probably this week, coming off a bye week and going up against an average Houston team. But I like the over in this one. I'm just going to be hoping for points. The Texans have put up at least 20 points every game this season, pretty much. I know they scored 19 2 weeks ago, but that pretty much already gets us halfway to this total. CJ Stroud has looked pretty solid and has weapons on the outside with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And you throw into the mix is poor Carolina rush defense, giving up the second most yards on the ground, averaging 144 yards to opponents. I think this is a spot where the Texans can explode, mix that run and pass nicely with Stroud. I see them possibly scoring 30 points in this one. In Carolina's offense, they're averaging just shy of 19 points per game, but Adam Thielen is on a resurgence right now.
Yes, he is.
Carolina might be getting Miles Sanders back, who practiced today. I think Carolina will be able to put up a couple of drives. I think Bryce Young is going to want to play better and show why he is deserving of being that number 1 overall pick, and I like the over in this one.
He could try to do that all he wants, but it's pretty clear that he was not deserving of the first overall pick. CJ Stroud is a significantly better player and has looked absolutely unbelievable this year. They've looked like they're different caliber levels of quarterbacks. In this one, I do think Stroud is going to want to ball out. I know you said Bryce Young wants to show why he's the number one, why he was the number one pick, but CJ Stroud's got a chip on his shoulder. He thought he was going to go number one. He did fall back to the Texans, and it looks like he fell into the better situation. The connection he already has with Nico Collins has been outstanding this year. They're one of the best dynamic duos in the league. And I do think the Texans get it done yet again. They are a much better team. They're much better coached as well. DeMeco Ryans is doing a fantastic job with that team. He's a potential winner of the Coach of the Year. And we are going to continue to ride this team. We are taking the -3. I don't think the Panthers want to win a game this year either. I do think they're going to end up with the first pick in the draft and the worst record. That continues here with the resurgence of the Texans. The Texans will get it done -3. What do we got next, man, in the back? We got the Rams. We got the Cowboys. Corey, what do you think about this matchup? The Cowboys, they're going to perform in this one. It's a big spread. Our guy Puka Nacua been playing well, especially now that they have Cooper Kupp back. Frees him up on the outside. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I'm actually going with the under in this one. In years past, you'd say, oh, man, this is going to be a shootout. But these two offenses just haven't been explosive this year. I can't figure out what Dallas's offense is about with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. It's all under routes. They completely choke in the red zone. We saw all that and even more in that game against the Chargers 2 weeks ago. On the Rams side, 1 week the offense looks great. The next, it's slow to get going. Stafford and Puka Nacua had a great connection last week. As you mentioned, Nacua had over 150 yards receiving. The only thing he didn't do was score. But they only put up 17 points against the Steelers at home on the turf. Cooper Kupp was held in check. I liked the Rams -3 last week. They let us down. On top of that, the Rams, the unders in the games for the Rams have hit in 5 of their last 7. I see this being basically an offensive struggle. I think that both teams are in a big spot. They need this win. I think it's going to be putting a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott, who we've seen historically doesn't do well under pressure. And Matthew Stafford is Matthew Stafford. He can win you games. He can lose you games. I see this being like a 21-17 low-scoring game. I don't like the spread, as you mentioned. I think it's way too big. So I'm going to go with the under on this one.
I agree with your score prediction because I'm on the Rams +6.5. So if we get your score there, we're both cashing here. I do think the Rams have enough offense to put enough points on the board to keep this within a touchdown game. We all know how Dak does in big moments. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities in this game to get after Dak, and I do think the Rams will do that. So give me the Rams at the +6.5, another one of my favorite plays this week. We are flying here, man, in the back. We have the game of the millennium. We got the Jets. We got the Giants. We don't have Daniel Jones, it looks like. Corey, I'll let you go first. What are you thinking?
Yeah, in the Battle of the Meadowlands, I'm going to go with the New York Football Jets, and I'd go up to about a field goal. I just think the Jets have a better defense than what the Giants saw the last week against Washington, and they only mustered 14 points against the Commanders, had to hold them off late to get that ugly win. I will give you credit, though. I do agree that Tyrod Taylor does seem to give this offense a better chance to succeed. I don't know if he's better than Daniel Jones, but this offense just seems to be gelling more when Tyrod is back under center. I just have a hard time figuring out how the Giants are going to move the ball against this Jets defense. Listen, it's tough to back Zach Wilson. I get it, but they have played the toughest schedule in terms of opposing quarterbacks this season. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Dak Prescott. And they played well against all of them, and of course, beating the Eagles and the Bills. So give me the Jets to get over 500 in this quasi-road game, and I'm going to go with the Jets with the small spread.
You said it perfectly. I keep saying that on this show, but I do think Tyrod Taylor is the better quarterback for this current Giants team. With a broken offensive line, it's good to have the veteran back there who knows how to get the ball quickly and does not take as many sacks. Daniel Jones is the much better quarterback, but for this specific team right now, he is not the answer. He cannot keep extending plays and taking sacks and taking 11 sacks in a game, for example. Tyrod Taylor has done a much better job. With that being said, I do think this is an underplay. It is the lowest total of the week. It is 36.5, but this is going to be a grinded out field position game. We saw it in the second half of the Giants-Washington game last weekend. Neither team was able to really get any momentum, and if the Giants didn't fumble a punt inside their own 20, I don't think the Commanders, would have even scored in that game. I think the Giants defense is starting to come alive. Micah McFadden, the linebacker, did get the best linebacker grade of the week. He's coming into his own. Bobby Okereke starting to settle as well. I think we see a defensive battle. The Jets have an outstanding defense as well. Under 36.5. This is my absolute favorite play of the week. And shout out to the man in the back who's saying this is the battle for Kirk Cousins. The Giants are not trading for Kirk Cousins, so keep your terrible comments to yourself. What's the
Danny
next game?
Dimes, all day, every day.
First. Corey, what are we brought to you by?
SoBet. Join today.
Baby. Join today, guys. $1. Come tap in for your first month. Get over 50 handicappers picks. No brainer. You're not going to get a better deal anywhere. Come tap in. Links right on the screen. Couldn't be easier. Man in the back, what we got? We got the Browns. We got the Seahawks. The Browns are not going to have Deshaun Watson. Seahawks have been playing some good football. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I like the home favorites here, Alpha. It's one of my favorite plays of the week as well. -3.5 for Seattle. I also think this total is a bit too low. I might even play the over as well. Going to see what the line finishes at near Saturday night, early Sunday morning. But this Seahawks team seems to be a bit on a roll as of late. They've won 4 of their last 5. The lone loss came against the Bengals in a low-scoring 17-13 game where the Bengals, quite frankly, stole that game from Seattle. The offense seems to be getting better, and this Browns defense was dominated by the Colts. Cleveland, speaking of stealing wins, was able to do so in that ref show last week.
Unbelievable.
It really was. It was unreal.
It was awful.
It was. DK Metcalf is questionable. He may not play, but Kenneth Walker, Tyler Lockett are reliable. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, the rookie wideout, is starting to become into his own. Always tough for teams to fly across the country and play in Seattle. I think the Seahawks get it done. I know this Cleveland defense has been solid overall, but again, they were exposed by Gardner Minshew. I think Geno Smith and the Seahawks are going to have a pretty good day, and they cover easily.
I see it the same way you do. This Browns team really let us down this week. I'm going to be the first one to apologize to SoBet Nation, to the Alpha Dog Experience Nation. Anyone who was in here last week and had to listen to me and Corey's BS and tell you that the Browns are historically one of the greatest defenses ever. They only allowed 56 first downs, blah, blah, blah. Everything we said went out the window when they gave up 648 points in the first half in that game. Was an outlier game, I believe, but I do think that the Seahawks are going to take it to the Browns this week. They're getting more tape on the backup quarterbacks in Cleveland. They're not having as much success now that Deshaun's out of the lineup, and it's just too many weeks in a row playing with too many backups to continue to compete in ball games. Give me the Seahawks -3.5. 12th man in Seattle is going to be the difference here.
And no Jerome Ford either for the Browns. That's big.
Yep. 100%. Next game, a lot of news coming out about this one. Brock Purdy, concussion protocol. We are going to Sam Darnold. The line has dropped 2 full points. What does that do for you, Corey? You changing your bet? You sticking with it? What you got?
Yeah, this is a pretty big news for the Niners. I mean, man, who had these two teams where they are coming into this one, right? I mean, we don't know what the heck Cincinnati is. The Niners losing back-to-back games. I did not see them losing Monday night to Minnesota, but here we are. This has to be a bounce back and get right spot for the Niners. They cannot afford to lose 3 in a row. So even though Brock Purdy is out, I'm going to still ride with the points for San Francisco with Sam Darnold. I think the defense will do enough to make Joe Burrow's life a living hell in San Francisco. And you've got the fans in the back pocket for this Niners team. They know they can't afford to lose a 3rd game in a row because they are worried about Philadelphia. Detroit is in the mix still for home field right now. So this is a very important game. I know since he's coming off a bye week, I don't know what we're getting with Joe Burrow. I just don't trust him or this offense. They don't look right. They can't move the football. And I think that Niners will take advantage of that defensively. And I like them at home. So give me the points in a big bounce back spot.
Corey, 49ers by 978 points. This is such a bounce back spot for this team. What is the weakness of the Cincinnati Bengals team? I'll tell you, it's the offensive line and an immobile Joe Burrow. That is the absolute worst combo when you're going up against the San Francisco defensive front. They've had a couple bad weeks. They have not looked great, and I expect that to fully turn around in this one. I think San Fran wins this by at least double digits. It's definitely one of my favorite plays. I've seen all over Twitter and other different apps that people are taking the Browns. They're trying to hammer it as the line is starting to move. I don't see it that way. I think Sam Darnold's a talented enough quarterback to go in there. If they only need him for a couple games, he can make the short, easy throws, and they'll pound the ball to Christian McCaffrey and run all game over this Bengals defense. Give me the Niners, -3.5, one of my favorite plays this week. Absolutely. All right, man in the back. What do we got? We got the Bears. We got the Chargers. Tyson Bagent of the Bears starting to get it together. I think I saw a stat. The average yards traveled in the air on Tyson Bagent's throws were 2.7, the lowest in history, but they got the job done. The dink and dunk offense worked. They're going up against this Chargers team that Justin Herbert really has not looked like himself. He has struggled since he's picked up that injury. We have said that every week on the show. What do you think in this one? This is a huge, huge spread for a team like the Chargers.
It is, and it's big, but I think I'm going to take it. I think this is like the same spot that the Niners are in, the same spot that the Cowboys are in. They need a win, and dropping their last two, although I don't trust Justin Herbert, quite frankly, and I never really understood the hype around him. He's got a good
That's
arm.
Crazy.
I never got on the hype train. I mean, what has he done? He hasn't won any big playoff games. Like he's good in the regular season. He missed a lot of open targets in that Dallas game 2 weeks ago.
He has missed some throws lately. He has missed some.
So I just never was as high on Justin Herbert as others. Maybe, paint my face as a clown, but right now I just don't see it, until he starts winning games with this Chargers team. Like I need to see more from Justin Herbert. But as you mentioned, Tyson Bagent winning his first career NFL game. Cool story, Division II product out of the good old PSAC Alpha.
Let's go,
conference,
baby.
Where our alma mater, East Stroudsburg University, competes in. But listen, it's the Raiders. They might be the worst team in the league. I mean, Josh Daniels is just flat out an awful head coach. Great track record as an O coordinator, head coach, not at all. So I just think that it is going to be terrible here for these two teams. Josh Daniels it's struggling with the Raiders. And I think that the Bears win against Las Vegas isn't that impressive. And I think the Chargers are going to roll in with a victory here next week on Sunday.
Man, I'm going with the Bears on this one. I just think it's too many points for this Chargers team. They've let me down too many weeks in a row. I have backed them in several opportunities, but Brandon Staley to me is the absolute worst coach in the NFL, and I can't hold Justin Herbert accountable for some of the absolute terrible decisions that Brandon Staley has made coaching this Chargers team. I do think the Bears get it done. Not one of my favorite plays this week, but I'm definitely taking the points here. Bears plus 8.5. Let's keep it moving. Man in the back, what do we got? We have the Raiders, we have the Lions, and boy, did the Lions have a wake-up call on Sunday. They got absolutely shellacked. I don't know if shellacked is even a word, but if it was, that's what happened to them. What are you thinking in this one, Gore?
I use shellacked a lot. I think it's a great word. So
it works in this spot.
Yeah, good job, Alpha. I like the Lions here. I know it's another big spread, 8.5, depending on what books you're looking at. But Dan Campbell said, hey, I think this team needed a wake-up call. And they certainly got that last week, getting absolutely demolished by Lamar and the Ravens. And I know we're not talking about the Ravens game here today, Alpha, but how about Lamar Jackson? He's starting to look like his MVP self again. I mean, him and his Ravens offense starting to click. But back to this game, I love the Lions here as well in a bounce back spot. No David Montgomery, but it looks like Jahmyr Gibbs is finally finding his nook in this offense. They finally gave him touches. They're showing why they drafted him in the first round this year. And I expect the Lions to just come out guns blazing. Jared Goff in the dome, home crowd. I think they dismantle this Raiders team. I think this is a 21-point blowout by the Lions.
Yeah, I see it the same way you do. I hate when we always agree on so many plays, but unfortunately we do here. I absolutely love the Lions. I think it's a huge bounce back spot for them. They're a very decent team. They have defense and a very decent, it's not a great word to describe this team, but the Raiders are nowhere near decent any facet of the game of football. I think the Lions are absolutely going to take it to them here, and we see a bounce back spot. Dan Campbell is a really good coach. I really do believe in him, and he's a galvanizer. He does a great job of getting the guys ready, fired up, and into a big game. He's going to have these guys pumped up for this week, and I do think the Lions have a big showing here. Before we do dive into best bets, because that I do believe that is all the games we're covering this week, a couple things I want to touch on quickly, Corey. What did you think about Bijan last week? They didn't report that he was sick. Everyone started him who had him in fantasy, and if you did, unfortunately, you probably lost because he had one carry for 3 yards. What did you think of that?
Yeah, it was weird. A lot of people were saying it had to be investigated with his props and stuff with the sports book, but I don't know. Arthur Smith just is doing different things. He's
an idiot.
He likes his back committee. Like, listen, Tyler Algier, he's shown some bursts, but you've got fucking Bijan Robinson. I mean, what are you doing? You know, like I have no idea what you're doing, not playing him. Robinson seemed like he wasn't feeling great, but it didn't seem that serious, and he kind of had
I agree.
a sly remark afterwards. So I don't know. That was super
I have
odd,
a
though.
feeling it was
expect him to
something else.
play.
I have a feeling it was something else they didn't report on, and we're ready to hear that Arthur Smith's getting investigated by the league because he did not report the injury ahead of the game, which is mandatory. What an idiot. You definitely can't do that with everything that goes into the NFL. Enough about that. Quickly, before we go into best bets, man in the back, put up the graphic. Y'all already know what it is. We're brought to you by SoBet. You guys can get a 1-month trial for just $1 at SoBet. Come tap in. Come support the show. Best way to support us is to come tap in with SoBet. Just $1 for the first month. Come join in. Over 50 handicappers worth of picks. Corey, best bets. What you got?
Yeah, so for me, I do like the Niners in a bounce back spot, even with Sam Darnold on the QB depth chart here as QB1. I like the Lions. They're going to blow out this terrible Raiders team. Josh McDaniels is just not good whatsoever. And, I like the Jaguars with that small spread. I liked what I saw. I know they played against the Saints, and the Saints are mediocre, but I'm just not high on the Steelers team. And if you're going to tell me that Kenny Pickett most likely will have to throw his way to a victory, I'm going to take the Jaguars with -2.5. So those are my top 3 plays.
I like it. Let's dive right into mine. First one right off the bat, Jets Giants under 36.5. Like I said, defensive grind there. Second play, 49ers -3.5. Definitely my second favorite play this week. Third and final, we are going to be taking the Rams +6.5 against the Cowboys. I do think the Rams get it done. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's show. Me and Corey will be back next week as always. Same time, same place. Check our Twitters. You know where to find Corey. You know where to find me. We're going to have basketball out today, and NFL, we're just a couple days away. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next week. Corey, say goodbye to the people.